Hello, I would like to welcome you all in a new session of podcast, The Social Science and Society. I'm with you, Sari Hanafi, Professor of Sociology and Director of the Center for Arab and Middle Eastern Studies at the American University of Beirut. Today, I would like to welcome Sarah Bulbeisi from the Orient Institute of Beirut. Sarah joined this institute in 2019 after completing her PhD at the Institute of Near and Middle Eastern Studies at the Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich in Germany. Before joining the OIB, she coordinated the research project Violence, Forced Migration and Exile, Trauma in the Arab world and in Germany. It's a sort of a higher education dialogue between Palestinian and Lebanese universities as well as her own university in Munich. Prior to that, she worked as a lecturer and a research associate at the Institute for Near and Middle Eastern Studies at the LMU Munich, this university, her university. And she produced a beautiful PhD thesis. I read some part or summary of it on taboo, trauma, and identity, subject constructions of Palestinians in Germany and Switzerland in 1960 to 2015. I forgot to say that Sarah, she is half Palestinian, half Swiss. And this thesis drew on conversation, life stories, and participant observation and explored the tension between the family histories of first and second generations Palestinians, which are characterized by the experience of expulsion and dispossession, and the reshaping of this experience in the Western European representation on the so-called Middle Eastern conflict. Sarah Bulbeisi's podcast research at the OIB revolved around interrelation between systematic violence and family and intimate relations in Lebanon. Sarah, أهلا وسهلا.
أهلا فيك. شكرا كتير للعزيمة.
أهلا. Okay, so let me start by asking you why Sarah went to end up doing a PhD in anthropology, sociology, this materials.
Well, formally, I graduated in Middle East Studies. So formally, my PhD was in Middle East Studies.
Yeah.
But
can you contextualize it a little bit?
Yeah, of
so
course.
Are you first generation in Switzerland, second? Can you tell us a little bit about that? How you end up there?
Yeah, so I was born in Zurich to a Swiss mother and a Palestinian father. And I went to schools in Zurich and I studied in Zurich. I actually studied, first I started to study literature and history. But because it was very Eurocentric and the Middle East was not at all represented, even though it was called general history, and I became very frustrated as someone having a mixed background, as someone having an Arabic Swiss background, and this is actually why I changed my subject to or my discipline to Middle East Studies. Because I was hoping to find more knowledge about the Middle East and so on there. And
So there is a part of a quest of identity and on this, or
Yeah, you could call it. Though I don't really like going there because, and I think I know why I don't like it, there is a kind of structural racism in Middle East studies where professors, like most of the professors are like non-Arabic professors or non-Middle Eastern professors. And there is often, you find a certain way of looking down on students from coming from Arabic countries or from Middle Eastern countries, and the way this contempt, maybe contempt is a rather strong word, but the way, let's say, this condescending attitude is articulated is by saying, these students are in search of their identity, and so maybe this is why I don't like looking at it through this lens. But of course, I mean, it's a sort of
So you did a master in Middle Eastern Studies, and then?
Yeah, I did. It's actually I did a master in Middle East Studies and in History and Political Science at the University of Zurich, and after that I wanted to I started doing a PhD on Palestinians in Switzerland, but it was not so much that for me it was never a PhD. It was an attempt to explore a very personal question. And I chose the PhD because this was my socialization. Like I chose the means I chose to explore this very personal question, which is being Palestinian in Europe, were the means I found in academia, or academia gave me. If I had been an artist, or if I had been, I don't know, a filmmaker, I would have chosen other means to explore this question. So, I ended up doing a PhD, but first of all, it was a decision to explore a personal question after I did my master's. And then because I didn't have a fellowship, I used to work in restaurants, and then my Swiss supervisor got a job in Munich.
Okay.
And he took some of his students with him to Munich. And this is funny because the usual way is the other way around.
That's true.
German scholars, German professors are going to Switzerland or to the German part, German-speaking part of Switzerland, and take their students with them. And this was very funny because Germany, Switzerland, has a much higher life standard than Germany, and as a Swiss, I was often asked why I ended up in Germany, and so I went with my PhD father. This is in the German term for the supervisor is mother or father, which is also interesting.
And I would say, as somebody who did his PhD in France, that how peculiar the German word, relationship between and how hierarchical, if you like, academia there. But for instance, in French, we will we use. I do remember in the seminar of Alan Touraine, for instance, we call him Alan, and Alan Touraine, in his signature of email, he will not write professor, doctor, etc. While in Germany you have this traditions.
Yeah.
And of course, it has. I mean, this is what I study in my PhD. I did in sociology of profession. I mean, the struggle in Germany between the professional schools and more literary and fundamental schools, science fundamental. This is why the science fundamental wanted to distinguish themselves by adding this all this honorative titles like doctor, professor.
Yeah. In Switzerland, these titles are not that important. It's rather like if you have a doctor title, you won't write it on your door. This is, I would say, it's more a German and an Austrian thing.
Yeah.
Swiss don't like to
Yeah.
brag about this a lot, and hierarchies are slightly different.
Okay.
So you would say this was actually a source of tension in Germany because coming from the Swiss German system, I was used to that that often professors, but also like the assistants of professors use the informal way to speak to you. And in Germany, this is a no-go because it's much more, hierarchies are much clearer.
Yeah, okay.
And this was a source of tension because often students didn't feel respected or wouldn't respect you. If you didn't use the formal way to speak with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went to Munich and you extend your sample from Switzerland to Germany, and as somebody who did work on European in Palestine in Europe, I know that Germany is the biggest Palestinian community in Europe is in Germany.
Yes.
So.
Yes. I ended up because I moved because my personal trajectory changed, or because of my professional move from Zurich to Munich, I extended the focus of my PhD, and I included also Palestinians in Germany. And so this is why I never had a comparative approach. It was not to compare the situation of Palestinians in Germany with the situation of Palestinians in Switzerland. It was just the organic extension of the things I was interested in. And
so what was your focus? I know you use the word oral history, which allow you to navigate life stories, but in the end, I see in the title a strong word like trauma. Okay, and I do remember you talk about. How trauma, including in the exile, and not only trauma as a generation. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, there are two strong words or two important words which are also in the title. It's trauma, as you said, and it's also taboo. And I was interested in the question how the tabooization of their experience of violence, how this tabooization shapes the selves and also the intergenerational relationships between different generations of migrants in Germany and Switzerland. So this is the core of my thesis, and it's not just the tabooization of their experience of violence, which is the tabooization of Israeli state violence. It's also the tabooization of of their identity, because the taboo of the identity and the taboo of the violence they were exposed to in historical Palestine are linked together by erasing Palestinian identity. You also erase the violence they were facing. And
by the way, when I was in France, I have an under label of identity, nationality is written non-identified. So it's even not stateless. I mean, stateless, it means that you don't have a legal status, and the host society will take care of you. But non-identified, and always I have a lot of problem with the municipalities, etc., that they open their computer and they don't have this category of non-identified. So
you are still stateless?
No. I became later on French citizen. But I mean, this is, I do really understand this attempt of identity eraser. Yes. Among European and I think you talk particularly about the Palestinians.
Yeah, and I actually show that through this erasure of their experience and of their identity, the violence they experienced in historical Palestine is continued on a symbolic level.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And
I will not ask you how you extrapolate today. I will ask you later on. But can you tell us whether this, if you like, mega findings is related to all waves of Palestinians? Because we know there is a wave, current wave of Palestinian from Syria, but there is a Palestinian from Lebanon, but you have an earlier wave. I guess your dad was on earlier wave.
Yes. Yeah. You can distinguish about 3 major waves of migrations of Palestinians, and my father belonged to the earlier one, which is which are the Palestinians who came during the 60s, during the industrial boom. They came to study and also to work. And then you have the Palestinians coming in the 80s, mostly from Lebanon, as refugees of forced migration. And then you have the recent wave, of course, the Palestinians coming from the Syrian refugee camps in the context of the war in Syria. And of course, they belong to different economical worlds, or for example, the Palestinians who came in the 60s, they are financially speaking are living in much better conditions. They studied medicine, engineering. But I would say that even though the social economic condition differentiates from wave to wave, I would say that the experience of symbolic violence, which is the experience of erasure of your identity and of your experience, of your collective trauma, which is also an individual trauma in the same time, that all of this was so strong as a violence that it affected, that it crossed all of the Palestinian communities, and also influenced Palestinians from the 60s, Palestinians who had
Sarah Bulbeisi, how much the change in legal system in Germany, if my memory is good, in early 90s, where they move from the Gestaltbite paradigm that it's very difficult to access to German nationality, to change that and make it more easier. Does this legal transformation, inflict positively on Palestinians?
I'm not so much an expert. I didn't go so much into the legal framework, I have to admit. But it was
but
those who
your
suffered,
Palestinians, most of them, do they have nationality or not?
most of them have.
Yeah.
But for example, if you look at the 80s, a Palestinian who came in the 80s from Lebanon, they were given, often for years, and some of them also for decades, they were given a tolerated status. A tolerated status is a status of a delayed deportation.
Yeah.
And so they were, for years, they were living with their packed suitcases in their houses, because they didn't know they could have been deported anytime. And this was also and Germany did this knowing that they were not able to go back to Lebanon, because they were, of course, they were stateless people, and Lebanon used this, them being statelessness, to presenting itself as not obliged to take them back. And so a lot of them became German citizens after Germany changed the refugee law. And German, and Palestinians who came in the 1960s often married Swiss women or German women to stay. Yeah.
Okay. Before going into what is the implication of your research on the current situation since 7 October 2023, I would like to ask you, you are a fellow here at Orient Institute in Beirut, which is a really prestigious institution, and I'm glad personally, and the EUB particularly has a partnership on different program. So what you are doing here, specific research on Lebanon?
I think I took my interest also to Lebanon, like my earlier interest to Lebanon, but I somehow changed the focus group. So I'm interested in the nexus between violence and intimacy. And I look at it in different in different contexts of relationships, in family relationships, in relationships within families, but also in relationships and so-called romantic relationships, but also in parasocial or imagined relationships, as for example to the state. But this was actually, so I think this triangle, systemic violence or political violence and relationships, family relationships, is and intimate relationships or romantic relationships, like how family relationships are reproduced later on in romantic relationships. This triangle is somehow new, because the romantic relationships are a new angle I'm looking at, but it stems from this earlier interest in the relationship between systemic violence and family relationships.
Very interesting. But are you going in direction of Eva Illouz, talking about the impact of capitalism on this relationship? I mean, social media, for instance, how love, intimacy, sexuality has been commodified.
I think I have more a psychoanalytical focus. So how I would say I look primarily at how relationships you have with your primary objects, like the mother or the father, how this affects your relationship patterns, or or how this shapes your libidinal economies later on. So I would say, for me, libido, the Freudian concept of the libido as a sort of desire towards the world, in a very broad sense, not necessarily desire towards a certain person or a certain significant
I see. Yeah.
person is very important for me.
Okay, I see.
And this was also during my PhD, because I was looking at how the symbolic violence the first generation was exposed to in Germany and Switzerland, how it influenced the second generation.
Very interesting. Did you go into Lacanian approach of jouissance, and because I see your very interesting, if you like, research project you are doing it, but I'm afraid now what also a very important factor, this is the individualization of in our late modernities, and how this individualization, I mean, also cut our I mean, we cannot anymore do intergenerational analysis, or if you like, we can do intergenerational analysis, but taking into account much more rupture than continuity. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm not a Lacan. I know Lacan is fancied by a lot of scholars, and especially in philosophy and in the cultural studies. But I'm not so much a Lacanian scholar, and so I wouldn't place myself there. But actually, I think I didn't understand well the intergenerational, the critique of the intergenerational.
No, it's if you like, is a focus more and more on how the individuals. I mean, how jouissance become central in individual level, and how this is affected by neoliberalism, if you like, and become it's a paradox, if you like. It's not anymore a choice. I mean, we pretend that we have a choice of jouissance, but I mean, it's not. It's not a choice. It's
I feel like, I think, of course, we are subjected to, of course, consumerism and capitalism and or liberalism does affect every aspect of our life and also our desires and everything. But I think for me, I think Marxist approaches or Marxist critiques of this are I perceive them often as too ideological in a way that they actually don't show us how this works, like how we are affected, or our desires are affected, and often I feel like this lens or this Marxist scholarly lens is staying off the surface of things, and there is often a kind of intellectual masturbation, which goes along with it. And I think for me, so the sort of analysis I'm trying to apply in my research is are really the methods who are applied in a therapeutical setting as well. So, for example, transference and counter-transference, التحويل والتحويل المضاد, or free association, التداعي الحر. So I think I really like to incorporate or to include these methods which were developed in a therapeutical setting, but which can be used and which are used in field in participant observation, in ethnographic data collection as well. And there are like by scholars who are psychoanalytically informed. So I would say there is this kind of usage of psychoanalysis differs from the use of psychoanalysis in a more philosophical in a more philosophical way, or in a cultural studies
I see.
Yeah.
Let us move to really something I think the audience will be very interested to explain today. I mean, we are all surprised about the position of Euro-America vis-a-vis the genocidal war on Gaza, and particularly Germany. I mean, Germany, which really, I mean, it was extremely harsh against expressing opinions about criticizing Israel. And I think your thesis tell us much about that. It's not new. I mean, this is what I understand from you. And so can you tell us a little bit more here, and how you see this, I mean, your commitment, if you like, your personal commitment, how you make your knowledge today useful for us, for actually for people on Germany and Switzerland. I mean,
I mean, as I said, I had taboo in the title, taboo and trauma, And I would say the taboo of Palestinianness is decades old. I mean, this sort of erasure of Palestinianness and of Palestinian experience of violence didn't just start with October 7. And in my thesis, I show how it actually dissolved Palestinians. How these discourses of erasure and justification of the violence they are exposed to or were exposed to dissolved them as subjects, and in order so they became finally guilty subjects. They always were exposed to the projection of being a terrorist or an anti-Semite.
Doing apology of terrorism, the catchy word. Now you find it all over the genocidal democratic countries. I mean, this is a message sent by Ministry of Education, French Ministry of Education, to IFPO here, to the French Research Center in Lebanon, asking them to be careful that no researcher would do an apology of terrorism.
Yeah, exactly. And on the other way around, Israeli state violence is always apologized, right? It's always justified.
Yeah.
I mean, and we are Palestinians in Germany and Switzerland, or in the Europe or in the West, I would say, are always surrounded about these apologies of Israeli state violence. I mean, it starts with the Nakba, how the Nakba is portrayed. Like, usually, I would say, Palestinian experience is silenced, is tabooed, but as soon as it becomes visible, it is getting justified. And it starts with 47, 48, how the Nakba is presented as the hundreds of thousands of refugees are presented as a collateral damage of the Arab-Israeli war, a war for which the Palestinians and Arabs are blamed for. It is described as a David against Goliath fight, and or Palestinians are being said to have voluntarily left the country, or having sold their lands, and so there are a lot of myths and narratives which silence or justify the Palestinian experience of violence. And being a terrorist or anti-Semite is maybe the most prevailing, but it's just one form of apologizing Israeli state violence. And here comes the term trauma in, because I'm a little bit challenging the prevailing notion of trauma, which is usually the notion of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And this notion of trauma is a very narrow one, which blends out the violence which systemic violence or political violence or economic violence emerging from economical system is causing to the individual. So in my thesis, I'm trying to show that trauma is more than an incident, is more than the result of an incident, or more than a result of a violent event. that overwhelms the psyche, as it is mirrored in the notion of PTSD. And I'm showing that trauma is more to see as a structure and a process. And tabooization is actually contributing or is actually traumatizing itself, because it is very important what happens after a violent event or after a series of violent events. It is important how society deals with people who were exposed to violence, and if you're consistently are denied your experience of violence, if you're consequently are denied of your perception, this actually is traumatizing as well, or this is a sort of continuation of the initial trauma of displacement and loss of your land and everything.
Sarah Bulbeisi, are you afraid that your choice of research, I mean your PhD, etc., this will undermine your career today in countries like Germany or Switzerland?
If I had been afraid of this, I never would have chosen to write about this topic. I mean, when I went to university, Palestine was a taboo topic. I mean, if you wanted to write about topics related to Palestine, you were basically told that this choice was too controversial. And often you wouldn't find professors who would supervise your work.
Oh my God. And so, maybe here the difference between Swiss Allemande and the German Swiss and the French-speaking Swiss. I mean, I know in Geneva, for instance, you have many professors, I mean, yes, outspoken about Palestine. My dear friend Ricardo Bocco, for instance, says where actually Anna Younes did her PhD there in graduate school of...
yes. Yeah, there is, I mean, the German part of Switzerland, which is the biggest part of Switzerland, is very influenced by Germany. I mean, there is a very high percentage of German professors teaching at Swiss German universities. There are a lot of German authors or journalists writing in Swiss newspapers, Swiss German newspapers. So Germany has the power, also the economical power, to influence Swiss German media and intellectual landscape, and it did so. And so to continue answering your question, so, and this Palestine being a controversial topic in academia is also extended to Palestinian actors wanting to do research about Palestine. I mean, Palestinian or Arabic or Middle Eastern students for them it's even more difficult to write about Palestine, because they kind of lose their credibility as scholars. You are not being taken seriously as scholars, and yes, and I think I didn't.
So if you like, I ask you personally whether you are afraid. But But looking today, for instance, about Germany, how they sack Ghassan al-Haj, Lebanese Australian anthropologist, or Nancy Fraser.
Of course, it's more like things are getting worse. But what I was trying to say, I think these are not new developments. These were already conditions people like me were subjected to or were exposed to, and I know many Palestinians who chose to not to write about Palestine or not to choose Palestine as a topic, as a scientific topic, and they found other ways to engage with Palestine, but in an indirect way. They would choose topic very carefully to kind of circumvent Palestine, but in the same time come close to the topic. So these are old mechanisms, and I wouldn't have explored this. I wouldn't have chosen the topic at the first place if I had been afraid of it. But still, it may. But of course, it's what is happening is very alienating and fear existential, like these existential, and they create sort of existential fears. Threats. But but I think they deepen them, but they don't create them in the first place. Yeah.
And Sarah, since 7 October, have you given any talks about?
Yes, a lot.
A lot. Yeah, where and etc. I mean, this is very important for the podcast. I mean, to see all this, how you engage with the various publics, if you like. How, if you tell us a little bit there. I mean, who are your audience? I mean, how you try to disseminate your amazing thesis into.
So after October 7, there was a kind of debate among diaspora Palestinians if one should talk to the media or not.
Yeah.
And a lot of us didn't have the trust to talk, because there is this feeling that one's statements would just be used to portray Palestinians in the way they are portrayed since decades. And also there was the feeling that, like, speaking to the public would mean a sort of dialogue, which was not really appropriate, because Palestinians were not like in circumstances where Palestinians were dehumanized, contributing or doing a dialogue or involving in a sort of dialogue would just contribute to the status quo. It would just create a sort of maybe Oslo, which creates a nimbus of peace and peace talks, and whereas the reality is
while the genocide and
genocide and settler colonialism
and apartheid is going on an accelerated pace, I would say. Yeah.
So there were all these reflections kind of restricted. Also me. I remember I was contacted by a Swiss newspaper for an interview, and I rejected. And then I told this to a Swiss friend, and this Swiss friend got kind of angry with me. And after that I changed my behavior. Like, I started to talk to the media. And one important aspect why I changed my opinion was also, I mean, my PhD was all about silencing and not having the platform to speak. So how could I not speak when I was offered this platform? So it was a very, like, there is also like a sort of hypocrisy in this attitude, because when you end up in complaining about how powerless you are and don't actually take the means you are given to by society to perform your agency, then it becomes a sort of victim performing victimhood, you know.
Absolutely.
So, and this is why I like this reflection, and also my friend who told me that I was just a coward, changed my mind, and then I got another someone from Swiss national TV contacted me and invited me to a TV show, and I was so afraid because I'm a shy person, rather introverted person, coming from academia. Coming from academia. Academia is a very محمي, protected. Academia is
terrain.
It's a very protected terrain, and in this protected terrain, one can be outspoken, but there is a leaving this very protected realm is something totally different. And it cost me a lot of courage to do this, but I did this, and I was the only one. There were 4 or 5 people engaging in a discussion. It was basically 1 against 4. And so it was very difficult, but I had a good feedback, and since then I continued to
so you more your contact in Switzerland than in Germany.
No. After that I went to German. I went to the radio, German radio several times. I went to Austrian radio.
Very good.
I went. I gave interviews to like important German newspapers, like the Taz, for example. So
have you written blogs?
Yes, no, but not
like necessarily blogs, but I mean for newspapers. I mean beyond interviews. No.
How do you mean?
No, it means that have you written op-eds, for instance, piece of opinion in newspapers?
I managed to place an article in the Neue Zürcher Zeitung, which is I think it's the most famous Swiss newspaper. It's a very conservative newspaper.
Oh, very good.
I think after, this was in the beginning of January, I think it was the second critical article within 3 or 4 months.
Very good.
And I always used, like in all of these media contributions, it was always my PhD, which was my starting point.
Very good. Actually, this is the connection between really research and society. The best contribution is when you bring research-based evidence, if you like, to issue of our life. Sarah, looking to your CV, you publish in German, you publish in English. You are in an Arabic country. Have you try to diversify your audience? I know you asked me 2 years ago about translating your thesis into Arabic and whether it will be a publisher. So I know you tried, but I mean, so what is the outcome? I mean, can you tell us about this? Because this is a big dilemma. And you are a young researcher. You cannot afford, spending money, for instance, in translation like myself, I do. I mean, how would you say about these issues?
So actually, this is a topic which frustrates me a lot. And it's not just that my work is not available in Arab. It's not just that it is not available in Arabic. It's also, it's not really available in English. Like my PhD was translated into English. And I paid for it because for me it's important to bring it also
Absolutely.
to the English market, and I'm getting always asked when it's when is it out, but I'm still struggling to find a publisher.
Okay.
And
so we'll talk off record after the
yes,
interviews.
and also I would also pay. For me, these things are important, not because of career technical reflections, but just I spent so many years on this topic, and it's
so relevant today. I mean, amazingly timely and urgent, I will say.
Yes. So so I would also invest the money in the translation, but for me it's really, I don't really like this whole publishing world is somehow very obscure to me. I don't know how things work. Also coming from a German system was I think a very kind of difficult for me. I didn't even know that you had to write a book proposal to find a publisher. You know, so it's so I would say it's not just a language problem. It starts also with being confronted with different systems, and I feel this whole publication world is very liberal. And I feel like also academia is very liberal, even though it often.
I think by liberal you mean neoliberal.
Yes,
I mean this commodification of higher education and and political
knowledge.
Economy of knowledge and
which knowledge is worthy to being published and
knowledge for what and knowledge for whom. I mean, this is
so you feel you end up feeling very small, and there is a lot of contempt or condescendence in this machinery.
Absolutely.
So okay. I'm still trying to come to terms with that.
Sarah Bulbeisi, thank you so much for this podcast with you, and I hope to see our audience for another sessions soon.
Thank you so much. Sorry, Hanafi, for inviting me.
My pleasure.